I'm Sharon Brett Kelly, and today on The Detail, I'm actually at a rubbish dump. Well, that's the old term for them. It is called Redvale Energy Park. It's on Auckland's North Shore, and I'm just standing here in the car park outside the reception. There's some trucks coming and going, waste trucks coming and going, and then behind them is just a grassy hill, and it's got yellow pipes coming out of it. On top of the hill, I can see a bulldozer or some sort of earth digger, but it doesn't have that smell of a rubbish dump. From here, I don't see any rubbish, so I'm here to find out what it's all about. Last month, I was at EcoGas in Reparoa looking at how my food scraps are turned into energy. Today, I'm finding out what happens to all the rubbish I throw into my red top bin. This place takes more than half of Auckland's waste, thousands of tonnes of it a day. That's a lot of environmentally damaging methane from rotting organics, and that's what we associate with the old-fashioned dump. But Waste Management calls this site a world leader, and I'm with Managing Director Evan Mail and its head engineer Lawrence Smith to hear why. We're standing at, can you describe it to me, Lawrence?
Okay, this would be a typical tip pad. So the trucks would offload their waste, and the dozer, as you can see, will push the waste into the cell. That gets compacted, and that is limited to a very small area on a daily basis. At the end of the day, they will cover, you can see the soil on the side, they will cover that over so that there's no pests, rain or anything getting in as well. And then the very next morning before they start, they pull that cover off, which is called a daily cover, and they'll keep pushing. Now, as the waste grows, we will extend the gas wells further and further up with the waste profile.
Okay, if we take it back a bit, because I'd like to describe what we're seeing. In a lot of ways, it would be, I guess, your typical landfill, really. If you're looking at it like this, you know, there's big bulldozers, heavy machinery shifting around waste, basically. Lots of seagulls and other birds flying around. But for me, what is new here is this thing that's making quite a lot of noise, the spray stream, which is the odour remover. And that's the thing. You haven't got that nasty landfill smell.
Correct. So it's an odour neutraliser that we contain the odour within our boundaries and not go over the boundary to affect our neighbours. It's quite scientifically how you've got to set it up in terms of which way the wind blows. Even you spray it into the wind, with the wind. We don't just have odour cannons. As you can see, there's several around the site. We have odour T-bars that go further away, so it keeps the neutralising the air.
We're surrounded by the countryside of North Auckland, I guess you would say. There's some pine trees over there. There's a bit of farmland at the back there. When you come in here to the site, you wouldn't know that it was a rubbish dump, which is the old-fashioned description, isn't it? This is more than a rubbish dump.
I can't say it's a rubbish dump. It's a modern-day engineered landfill. I have to say that.
Modern-day engineered landfill. It's not a rubbish dump. But how much worth of rubbish comes here every day? How much waste?
That would vary from on how busy the waste streams are. It depends on the economy. So anything from 2,000 to about 5,000 tonnes a day.
Of those thousands of tonnes that come here every day, how much ends here? Because this is the Class 1 landfill.
Correct. It varies between 70 to 75 in Class 1 and 25 to 30% in your Class 2.
And Class 2 is just down the hill. We've just driven past it. Tell me what that is.
So that's your C&D waste, which is construction and demolition waste. That is the waste that cannot be reused or recycled, ends up in the Class 2 from the construction industry. That would also be your lightly contaminated excavated soils or asbestos soils. So when they demolish a building that's old and there's asbestos in it, they would take that asbestos, wrap it and bring it here for burial in the Class 2. They would also have asbestos friable soils, which is when you've broken down that house, there would be friables within the soil that would then end up in that area.
Yeah, just remind me what friables are
So
again.
those are the small particles of asbestos. So when they've broken down the house, there's obviously things that are scattered on the soil. So they normally take off about 300 of the soil on the building site, and that would end up over there as ACM soil.
Because we know asbestos is a very bad thing when it gets broken down. So that land there, does that get any special extra treatment to protect the environment?
It will be. So it's also within a cell, a constructed cell, so it can't leach out. And as they go up, they will be covering on the outside. So as you raise the landfill form, they will cap it over with 1 metre of clay as well.
What we see on the surface is completely different to what's going on underneath. Tell me about that.
So as the waste is underground, it starts to biodegrade, and that biodegrading is creating a gas. The gas is landfill gas, which is around 52% would be methane, 2 to 3% oxygen, and then the other would be CO and various other nitrogens and other gases that are within there. And then we vacuum that gas off through the gas collection system. So there's a negative pressure. It's like a vacuum cleaner. So you're vacuuming out the gas out of the landfill, and it is then taken to our energy park where we destroy it through the generators which generate electricity, or we flare it off.
The thing is, of course, landfills get a really bad rap, and we're going to talk in a minute about why this one is not the dump that we imagine, maybe from our past. But I'm looking out here and I can see a heck of a lot of blue and pink plastic bags, a heck of a lot of rubbish, basically.
Yep.
Can you describe it to me, Evan?
A lot of it's soft plastic, what you can see here, right?
Yeah.
So-
Is that the worst thing?
I think so. I mean, it's we have to find solutions to circularise some of those materials, because this is what people have put into their red bins, because they don't perceive there being an option to recycle it. So we do need to get better at what we do with our recycling that we do in this country.
So how do we get round that? I mean, I see what you're doing here and this whole circular thing, and you're capturing the energy, but the reality is there's a big pile of waste that doesn't seem to have anything circular about it. It's going to sit here in the ground.
So we're the backstop. So this facility is the backstop. So we try to recover what we can out of the waste before it gets here. And then when it's here, we recover the energy from the gas that we collect. Could we do better? Absolutely. But that requires people to care and to make the right choices.
So it's up to consumers, up to people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's 550,000 households in Auckland, and their red bins end up here. Then there's the waste that's produced for industry, for commerce on top of that as well.
So how long have you been in this game, Evan?
12 years.
Have you seen people's habits change, their behaviour change in terms of...
Companies and people, absolutely. So sustainability is a big thing for a lot of the large corporates. We're starting to see that become more prevalent in our smaller customers as well.
What does that mean, though, sustainability?
Well, they can, again, it comes down to choices. So if you think of the products you produce, how can I make those sustainably? So a good example is we're about to open a new plastics recycling plant in Penrose, which takes PVC plastic, which is your guttering and your drain pipes. The PVC is number 3 plastic. And that's a problem because it doesn't really have a suitable home. But what we're doing is we're working with Marley, which is the brand name for Aliaxis, who's a global company, and we're collecting, shredding, palletising that PVC at this facility, and we're going to turn it back into new drain pipes and guttering. So that's the circularity that we want. But that will take one type of plastic. We need to think about what we can do for the rest. And sustainability is also financially sustainable. So it's making sure that the person at the end of the chain can also make some money to keep in business.
Okay, so we've got a truck, a waste management truck backing in now,
Yeah.
and that's got the rubbish from the red bin.
Yeah.
It's quite sobering, actually.
That's one Jason, you can drive it and turn over down here.
It's taken $200 million to make this ageing landfill a low-emitting energy producer, but it is coming to the end of its 35-year life. A new one is planned further north. As we drive around the corner, Lawrence points out what's next for the land.
There's various solutions for it, but if you look behind you, Sharon, you can see we've planted it with native species on the area that we've actually finished. So that's what the landfill could potentially look like. We have a thickened planting zone with native species. Manuka especially, you could have beehives on here for honey in the future. Like I said, we have grazing areas. Not everything's going to be planted up. There's grazing areas that you could have goats and sheep on, nothing heavier than that. There's potential for other renewable energy solutions as well. So it varies in the long term.
Right, but it can't be like big trees in case it breaks up the land. Nothing that's going to break up the land.
Deep roots,
Yeah. So the Manuka and the native species are ideal. Okay. So what you're looking at in front of you is a series of stormwater ponds. So as it rains, and the stormwater that does not come in contact with any waste but runs off our grass embankments will all end up in these series of stormwater ponds and eventually be of a quality that it can be released back into the street without any contaminants. You can see the wildlife.
Yeah, paradise ducks.
So yeah, there's various portions of the landfill. This, what's in front of you, is actually part of the landfill that has been finished and native species have grown.
I see.
I think took us about 5 years to get to that. Even in the finished landfill, this is part of the finished capped off landfill.
And what we're looking at here is a grassy hill.
Yes.
But directly in front of us is a thing that says leachate re-injection point.
Okay, so what we will do is we'll bring leachate and re-inject into it so that it stimulates it stimulates the bugs back in the waste, that then creates gas again, so that we can ensure that in the time period that it becomes inert. So we want to keep ensuring there's a bit of moisture within the waste.
But leachate is bad.
It's bad for the external environment, not within the anaerobic digester. High levels are, yes, but there's no high level. So what will happen, the landfill will dry out eventually. So you want to keep stimulating those bugs with just a bit of moisture, and those bugs will then create the gas that we need. And then further forward is the fenced off area that we do our sheep grazing trials as well.
Is this all what makes it kind of a world-class facility? All these things that you're showing me?
Correct. That would be from the standards we set right in the beginning to the gas capture, to the way we control the waste, the way we destroy the leachate, the way we're trying to present it at the end of its lifespan.
Have we come full circle?
Yep. All this side is the eastern badder, as we call it, and this has all been complete kept and monitored on a regular basis, droned. The FID test goes over it, the methane drone goes over it, to ensure that we are capturing every bit of gas and that we don't want to be letting any gas or methane into the atmosphere.
So here we are with a grassy hill, and there are these yellow pipes sticking out of the ground. You say this is capped, so this is kind of old landfill that is being what?
It's been the anaerobic digester that it is, so it's kept over. We won't come back here to place waste, and we've kept it and prepared it for the future.
Those pipes are the things that are capturing the methane.
Correct. So those are gas wells that you see sticking out, and they adjust those wells to bring the gas into the header ring main that goes around the whole site that then feeds back into our energy park.
Right.
Eventually, when we're ready to close, these gas wells will be underground, so that it won't stick out. We'll have a box that is just level with the surface, so you easier to mow, and if we want to place sheep, they won't be rubbing against the gas well. They'll be underground and protected.
And just tell me about the capping process. What does that actually mean?
You'll have your final waste level. You will place a levelling layer, as we call it, intermediate soils, which is about 300, and then we'll place at least 1 metre of thick compacted clay over the top of that, and then topsoil on top of that, so that you can grow the grass or grow native species on top.
Why 35 years for a site like this? Could you try and get consent to operate this as a landfill for another 35 years?
There's a lot of around the planning rules about how high you can go, the slope of the hill. Potentially, if you had a really, really large site, that's something you could look at, but you have to go back and get a whole new consent.
They actually are trying to do that. The site was supposed to close in 2028, but now there's a proposal to keep it open for another 8 years because the new site won't be ready until the mid-2030s. Let's just describe where we are now. So the sign says Energy Park Workshop, Waste Management New Zealand, and then we're looking at a gate that's got lots of dangers and, has chem and multiple hazard area lorries. So, and then behind, we've got a bulldozer scraping the road for us just to create some extra good sound. But they're behind that fence there. That's
Energy park. That is the energy park. That is where we house our generators that we destroy the methane that we vacuum off the landfill.
Yeah.
And that methane is the fuel that drives these generators that generate electricity, and we supply back into the grid.
So the hill just across the road, really, that's got all the pipes sticking out of it.
All the gas wells.
All the gas wells.
The gas collection system, yes.
Yeah, that's going into some kind of pipe under the ground.
Correct. A normal gas header main, which would be under vacuum, would then come in and feed this gas energy park, where we use that gas to run the land. So it's under pressure, a vacuum, which the flow is around 7,200 cubic meters per hour of gas that would come into this facility to drive our generators.
Where does it go from here?
We use a bit on site, and then we connect into the national grid, and we sell the electricity back into the national grid.
And just remind me how many households?
So this site has the potential to generate electricity for 15,000 households. WM has the ability to produce throughout all its sites for 25,000 households. So what we also do here at the energy park is we capture the heat off the generators, and then we use that heat to heat up hot water that goes across to the aubergine plant next door to us.
The huge aubergine plant, which is in under greenhouse.
Yes. So they use the hot water within their greenhouse for the aubergines, and in winter they take landfill gas as well that they use to heat up in the greenhouse.
The thing is that you got in touch with me after the podcast that I did on eco-gas, and they tout themselves as something that, they take the waste, and that whole amount of waste is turned into something. But are these food bins a good idea? Is that a good way to go? They're your competition, aren't they?
Yeah. So I think this is really a story about we look after emissions as well, and so we capture the gas, we turn it into electricity. So, that's our story.
Yeah. They are a much smaller operation, I understand that now, because you're taking the whole...
Yeah, we take everything.
The whole deal.
Yeah.
Can you say what percentage of the waste gets turned back into energy?
On this site?
Yeah, let's say the site.
It's just the organic component. So if there's plastic in the waste, that won't turn into energy. So it's anything organic will turn into energy.
What about the rest?
We try and recover as much as we can before it gets here. Can we do better? We must do better.
That's right, because Auckland Council's goal is to be zero waste by 2040.
Right.
I mean, what's that, 15 years away?
Yeah, it comes up quick, right?
Yeah, I know. So are we going to get there?
We'll touch base in 15 years and
Well-
we'll see if your red bin's still going out, Sharon. We can check.
I don't know if I'll be making podcasts in 15 years' time.
Oh, come on.
But is it what is your dream as the head of our biggest waste management company?
So we have a strategy called Porahita, which is the Māori word for circular. So we believe in finding sustainable circular activities. So a good example was the PVC that we're taking in Penrose with Early Access or Mali. So we are and will continue to be a large recycler of plastic in this country, but working with partners because what happens generally is you have issues with the inputs or the outputs, then you have a problem. So which is like the red cycle example in Melbourne, where basically they were just filling warehouses full of plastics.
And not being able to do anything
Not
with
being
it.
able to do anything about it. We want as many onshore solutions as possible so New Zealand can deal with its own waste and recycling and recovery, not having to export it.
Because
but
how
that's
much are we
tougher.
still exporting?
A lot, because we don't have the manufacturing base that we used to have. So finding, a good example of that is, with OG shutting, we're losing a lot of onshore recycling of
So
cardboard.
we're sort of going backwards.
Yeah, so a lot of that now will have to go offshore to find a recycling solution. So
It's so depressing, really, isn't it?
So that's where, but there's no one person helping make those decisions for the infrastructure that's needed to help onshore that recycling. Because otherwise we're spending carbon miles sending stuff overseas, and we're bringing back the opposite way the finished product.
This is world class. How many of our landfills around the country are like this?
Out of the 40 active Class 1 landfills in the country, I would say you'd be looking at less than 10 that are as good or even come close to being like this.
Someone gave me a figure the other day of something like more than 100 landfills altogether.
There's probably a lot of closed, and I'd say a lot more. I think a good example, I think Auckland has, 250 closed tips and dumps around Auckland. Back in the day, they didn't have the liner, they didn't have the gas capture, so they were the tips and dumps that we used to visit in the 70s with our parents.
And are some of those still active?
I would say in the smaller regions, potentially.
Why?
Because they don't have what you see here. So the councils haven't invested in that regional infrastructure.
And they don't have to invest in that regional infrastructure.
Well, they're not compelled to, no.
Now this one has only got a few more years before you need to find another place, and you've got somewhere identified. I mean, landfills are often controversial, aren't they? New landfills.
Yeah, we're not popular,
No.
but I still foresee the future. We need that backstop, right? Have that backstop.
You do get a bad rap, don't you?
Yeah.
You get a hard time.
Yeah, really, really hard time.
What do people criticise you for? That you're making money out of rubbish?
No, I don't. I think they feel that we're not doing the environmental protection that the environment needed. We are the best environmental solution for their waste, not our waste. It's not our waste.
That's it for today. Thanks to Evan Mail and Lawrence Smith. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and NZ On Air. This episode was engineered by Mark Chesterman and produced by Gwen McClure. I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. Ka kite.